Hello and good day, it's your boy Adam Bomb the Phenomenon, bringing you another video on my channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. And let's get started, right? Let me kind of lay out the landscape where we're headed here. As you can tell from the title, I'm going to talk about a subject that, most people want to keep under wraps. But for me, I'm a felon and I'm going to tell you how I feel about it. Now, I also want to give all thanks to my new subscribers. People have been commenting and liking the videos. I think my video that's been, 9 days old at this point has garnered over 12,000 views, almost 200 comments, and that's the kind of stuff that I'm looking for because I want that engagement. I read every single comment that comes through, good and bad. I really try to take into consideration all you guys' suggestions, what I can do better, what I shouldn't do. So please, by all means, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know how you feel about the videos, if you relate to them, find them accessible, all that good stuff. Now, one of my commenters said I should record something else, so here's a suggestion that I took, and I'm recording a video of me and my girlfriend here taking a hike out here on the Embudo Trail, which is up off Tramway near the Sandias. And I figured, since the subject matter is a little bit, on the, I don't know how to say, edgier side maybe, I'm going to give you something really nice to look at as you hear my story. Not that it's anything, terrible, but stick around to the very end. There's going to be a really cool solution that I found after becoming a felon that kind of helps people who sometimes make mistakes but are able to rectify them and see a bright light at the end of the tunnel, right? And also in the middle of this video, you're gonna see something pretty special, which I think a lot of people, don't see too often. It was my first time actually, but there's gonna be a nice, beautiful sunset in the middle of our hike going over Albuquerque. So sit back, grab your food, your drinks, and I'm gonna tell you a little bit about me and exactly how I feel about this situation. So as we all know, becoming a felon makes a lot of the life that you live look a little bit more bleak, a little bit more gray. And when I became a felon, which was about a year and a half ago, I really had to stop and look at myself and look at my future. It almost was like my life flashed before my eyes a little bit, because being a felon does limit you in a lot of ways, and I'll talk about that. But it also can be a righting of the ship, right? If you take it seriously enough, as I did. So I'm going to talk about first, where I came from, right? I was born and raised in El Paso, Texas, and I'm 34 years old. My upbringing was probably one of the best childhoods that a lot of people wish they could have if they had a bad one. I tell people about my childhood and they're, really excited that I had a good childhood, right? And, I went on summer vacations with grandma and grandpa. I played baseball, basketball all the way through high school. My aspirations were to become a doctor. I even went to a pre-med magnet high school, so I was pretty good in school. I always got straight A's. I never missed any school. I was that typical perfect kid on the outside, right? I had friends. I was somewhat popular. I went to parties in high school. I got my car at 16. Everything just lined up right for me. Pretty much until I was 18, right? Now, the one thing that happened in my life that's happened to a lot of people is, my mother and father did get divorced when I was 7 years old. Now, that time in my life, I remember there was a huge custody battle. I remember me staying with my grandparents a lot, so I guess my mother and father could talk things out. And back then, I really didn't know what was going on. I've heard the word divorce. You know, I saw my mom and dad fight a lot, argue a lot. And even when I was sleeping, you know, at night, I would wake up in the middle of the night and hear them arguing, you know. So I didn't really think too much of it. I thought it was just something that happens because it's never happened before. But I do know that when the divorce proceedings finally ended, my dad won custody, which is a very rare thing, and I would have visitation rights with my mother. Those didn't last very long, unfortunately, because, you know, she would come drunk, or she would be late, or would want to reschedule, things like that. That just made it very difficult. And I think the visitation rights were revoked due to, you know, lack of, I guess, responsibility on her end. You know, when I was younger, I didn't understand it. My dad told me that, you know, I can't see my mom no more, but I could always talk to her on the phone. But as I got older and older, I realized, you know, I didn't really want to talk to her. I really didn't want to associate with her, and I was happy living, you know, with my dad, right? And doing things with my dad, and really just trying to enjoy life. And I think by the time I was 9 or 10, I tried to block that person and that situation out of my life at a very young age. Now, I know a lot of you are going to say that's your mother. I got that a lot in my life. You know, that's your mother. She's the one that gave you life, yada, yada, yada. I want to let you guys know that I still have never spoken to my mother since the visitation rights have ended. And that's been a choice on my end. Nobody in my family has ever told me I could or couldn't talk to them. So that was a choice on my end. And I'm going to realize later on in my life that, you know, the divorce between my mother and father, the lack of a woman figure in my life, really did fuel a lot of things later on as I left high school going to college. Okay, so that's kind of pretty much my upbringing there, and that's kind of where that is. Now, I also want to mention that at 16 years old, my father went to prison for some mistakes that he made. Now, when I found this out, I had no idea that my dad was a quote-unquote bad person or has had a past, right? Because when my mother and father divorced, my dad took care of me day in, day out, worked night shifts, you know, picked me up from school or took me to school in the morning, picked me up from school in the afternoons, you know, did all the right things. So when I turned 16 and I got my car, I was leaving the house more often, and I think it kind of put a void in his life that, you know, he's not hanging out with his son no more. So I put a lot of blame on myself for not being there for him as I got my car, and it led him to going out more with his friends, doing, you know, bad things, and eventually him getting arrested and spending 5 years in prison. So by the time I was 16 years old, I had no mother, I had no father in my life, and I was pretty much forced to grow up, you know, go to school on my own, raise myself, make sure I wake up in the morning. And I still finished high school. I still got great grades, and everything went fine. And I ended up going to community college for the first 2 years of my life out of high school. And then after 2 years in community college, I went right to Texas State University in San Marcos, Texas, and I graduated with a bachelor's degree in English. So I faced adversity a lot early in my life with, you know, parental divorces and, you know, stuff like that. So that's pretty much where I'm at by the time I'm 24. Okay, so another part of the story that I want to highlight and make mention of is my experimentation with drugs, because little known fact is my experimentation with drugs and me becoming addicted to methamphetamine is what really led me to becoming a felon late in my life. So I started using weed when I was 15. You know, typical, you know, everybody's tried weed, let's do it. So we tried weed, and, you know, I kept smoking weed all the way till I was probably 28 years old. And that, of course, led me to start going to parties, because I guess I was typical one of the cool kids, right? And, you know, I bring my own bag and bring my pipe and stuff like that, and go to parties, smoke weed. Now, what would happen there is you may be in a group of friends who are all smoking weed, but there's always going to be that one person who has something else, right? And that something else was cocaine. Now, I experimented with cocaine 16 years old, and I also experimented with ecstasy, and I used both of those substances till I graduated high school, because I would go to a lot of raves and a lot of parties, and cocaine and ecstasy were, you know, kind of the next level drug after weed. So I want to mention this too, is in my opinion, I think weed and alcohol are gateway drugs, right? Because if I would have never started smoking weed, I probably would have never started drinking alcohol. And if I would have never started doing either one of those things, I would never have been put in those situations where there's going to be a person there to tempt me with other things, such as cocaine, ecstasy, acid, mushrooms, DMT, you know, all the things that, you know, I guess people have or do, and me being 15, 16, 17, 18, and me being, you know, nobody there to watch me, such as my mother or father, sure, why not? Why wouldn't I, right? And I did all those things. So weed and alcohol, in my opinion, are the gateway drug of my life that led me to do a lot of things and experiment with a lot of drugs at a very young age. Now, as I left high school, went into college, my weed smoking only ramped up more. Started doing dabs and edibles, and my cocaine use was still prevalent on the weekends, and every time I went to a rave, which was at least once every 3-4 months, I would do, you know, pills of ecstasy or tabs of acid, right? So all that drug usage was very present in my life, and I guess it made me believe that, you know, I was invincible. And a lot of people say cocaine's very addictive, and I never got addicted to cocaine where I needed to have it. It was always one of those special occasion type drugs. So alcohol remained present, or very present in my life throughout all that as well. Like I said, I kept drinking until I was 28, and I realized at 28 I was no longer wanting to drink anymore because it brought a lot of problems in my life. So, but when I left college, you know, the cocaine usage, the ecstasy usage, you know, the mushroom trips and the acid trips, you know, those all kind of dissipated as, I guess, I matured a little bit and I was getting into the workforce. So a lot of those kind of drugs stopped, and I still kept smoking weed and was continuing to drink alcohol. And when I say alcohol, you know, bottles of Burnett's vodka, or, you know, 30 racks of beer, right? So all those things just remain present, and I want to mention that because obviously later on in my life, I ran into methamphetamine, and in my head, you know, I hear the stories, don't do it, not even once, and I hear the stories about what drugs do to you, and because of my past drug usage and my experimentation with drugs and how they never really got in the way of my successes at this point, I said, sure, why not? We'll try some methamphetamine, and, you know, we'll talk about how that started and what that led me to, and really what the whole purpose of this video is how a person like me, with an upbringing like me, who, you know, relatively had a good upbringing. There was a few hiccups in my early age and a few hiccups in my late teenage life, and the experimentation with drugs, you know, during my developmental process of my brain, you know, really, I'm not the person you would look at and think, oh, he's a felon, right? And I know judging a book by its cover is one of the worst habits we can do, but unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, judgment is the worst sin a human being can have. I really feel that if we got rid of the judgment aspect of our brain and how it's wired, that we would be a lot more kind and friendly to each other in this world. But unfortunately, it just doesn't happen. I mean, I hate to say it myself, I judge somebody at least once a day. It just happens. It's like an innate characteristic in our body or in our brain wiring. Okay, so I want to mention this, that I'm not the typical what you would look like as a felon or what I would act like as a felon, or I never wanted to become a felon. I was pretty aware of right and wrong, and ethically, morally, what's right and wrong. So giving you that background of my upbringing, my teenage and early adolescent, or my early 20s, really did set in stone in motion a lot of my habits, thoughts, and just purely thinking I was invincible most times, right? All right, so let's fast forward a little bit, right? I graduated college. I ended up living a few years in Austin, Texas. However, things happen, this or that, whatever it may be. And at this point, my dad's back in my life. He's no longer in prison. So therefore, he decides to retire in Albuquerque, New Mexico. The cost of living in Austin was a little bit more than I could afford at that point, being a single person. So I decided to move to Albuquerque, New Mexico with the thought of lower cost of living and getting a fresh start. Now this is where I get my first real job, as I say, because I go into sales and marketing, where I'm selling DirecTV and big box retailers. And I find out that I'm really good at it. I'm really good with interacting with the people, the public, and leading a team to success. So this job right here, I hold that job in Albuquerque for 11 months. I end up getting promoted to supervisor and moved to Rapid City, South Dakota. And that's where I learned how to become a future business owner for a 1099 S Corp. Now, I live in Rapid City, South Dakota for another 11 months before moving to Fort Collins, Colorado in November of 2016. There I end up getting a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house. I have a car, I end up getting my own pet. Things are looking really awesome, right? And at this point, my drug usage has pretty much dissipated, except I'm still smoking weed, and my alcohol usage is getting less and less as the days go on. And I'm really enjoying life. I'm really happy where I'm at. All those good things that come with being a successful person. Now, with the new business I was running, there was a lot of red tape, taxes, things I didn't quite understand, or maybe wasn't taught well enough, to where I wasn't making ends meet as much as I thought I would, right? They kind of promised me this great, future, where it was a little bit more difficult than they made it out to be. So I ended up quitting that job, and at the end of that year, 2016, and I start working at Constant Contact in February 2017. This is another sales and marketing job, but at this time it's over the phone, and the culture there is great. I meet a whole bunch of new friends in Colorado at that point, and they're all successful people just like me, and so life just kind of keeps going forward, right? Fast forward to the next year, in September of 2018. Things start getting a little stale again, things start getting a little boring again, and my life has become very repetitive, where I wake up, go to work, have the weekends off, wake up, go to work, have the weekends off. And I'm no longer drinking at this point. I've completely quit that out of my life, but I'm still smoking weed. And I decided to quit Constant Contact because I just was tired of working there. I was burned out of sales and marketing. Reaching the monthly quotas every month just took a toll on my mental health and my well-being. So I quit that job in September of 2018. Now, with that, I had a lot of free time on my hands, right? And September is my birthday month, so I decided, let's have a little fun. I was looking for cocaine one night, and some of the people that I had asked said they didn't have any, but they had methamphetamine instead. So I said, sure, why not? Something new, something different. What have I got to lose, right? Now, in the back of my mind, I've known the dangers of methamphetamine. I've heard all the horror stories about it, but considering my past and the things I've done already and all the drugs and experimentation I've already done, I didn't feel like I was a high risk to it. And I ended up doing methamphetamine for the first time in September of 2018. And it ended up becoming, just a weekend thing, every other weekend. And then it became every weekend. And then it slowly became a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, then on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, where eventually I started doing it every day. I started buying my own supply, my own bags, and I learned a lot about how to do meth and the different variations of how to do it. And unbeknownst to me, I had become hooked with the first hit, yet I didn't know it for a long time after this. Alright, so at this point, I have no job. I'm using every day, and I'm slowly running out of money to continue to live my life with rent, electricity, cell phone, all that good stuff. So the months pass, October, November, December, and eventually in January of 2019 I am unable to pay my rent. So I somehow negotiate a deal with the office to pay my rent in February with the late rent in January, and they agree. And again, I couldn't pay that. So March 1st of 2019 comes, and I receive a 30-day eviction notice, which at this point I kind of accept the fate that I have given myself, and I go and get high more, and get high every day, and say, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna have to just do what I gotta do. So I end up getting all my belongings and put them in a U-Haul, and then transfer them to a 10x10 storage unit, and accept my fate that I become homeless in Colorado at the end of March of 2019, and I'm now living in my car with my pet cat. So that's kind of where I'm at this point, all thanks to the almighty methamphetamine and the addiction that I am refusing to accept. So I realized that I need to get a fresh start, and I decide to move to South Dakota in May of 2019 with the hopes of different people, different places, and a different playground, so I can get a fresh start. Unfortunately, my addiction does not leave me alone, and I start using within a month of living there, and things just flatline as I live there. And I don't have many friends there. I moved to a very small town in South Dakota, so it's pretty difficult to get there first and foremost, and I end up going back to my same ways, right? And nothing changes for me. So I don't stay there very long. I leave South Dakota in August of 2019, and I decide, you know what, I do need some help at this point, and I check myself into a rehab facility in Santa Fe, New Mexico in September of 2019. Now, I go into this rehab facility with the hopes of another fresh start, and I'm going to get my life together, and I'm going to have all the help and resources I need. And it was at this point that I realized the divorce between my mother and father really left an empty void in my life. Not having a mother figure growing up, I felt like I was let down by her. And my therapist also let me know that, not having a father figure during my really late stages of teenagehood and going into college really affected me to where I felt like I was let down by him. So really there was a void inside me that I was trying to fill with all the drug uses I have been doing. And it finally clicked in my head that, I'm not perfect, and I'm not, great, and I'm not good at handling my feelings as much as I thought I was, and I have to accept the fact that, I was hurt by those things when I was younger, and I probably am still hurt by those things as I was using. And the therapist in recovery really opened my eyes to those things and really helped me understand how to cope with those feelings without having to revert to drugs or some other sort of numbing substance. Now, that was a good point in my life, but I only ended up staying for 35 days, meaning I did 2 weeks detox, and I did, the other 2 weeks in the recovery center house, and I ended up leaving because I was just so tired of all the rules and the classes and the whatever they had us to go through. So I said, fuck it, I'm out. Voluntarily I left, and I moved back to Colorado with the thought of, well, I'm going to start again there because I really like Colorado. I have friends there that are all users, and I go there and I'm still homeless in my car, living with my cat, and I'm there from September to October for about 2 months, and I end up sitting in a park and I realize I'm so stupid because I'm just using again, getting high, not advancing myself in my life at any point, and I need to make a fucking change again, and I don't know where to go. I don't want to go back to rehab. I don't want to go to another random place and start fresh there. So I call the only person I know that's always has my back, and that's my dad. And he lets me stay in his house rent-free just to get on my feet, and I get clean for 2 weeks, and I end up getting a job at a hotel in Albuquerque on November 14th, 2019. Now, this is awesome because I'm finally feeling stable again. I'm finally feeling like, okay, I got this. I don't need drugs. I understand my feelings and where I've been hurt in my life, and that void that I have is no longer there as much because I understand it a lot better. So I end up moving out of my dad's house and get a room at the hotel because I get an employee discount, and I have a roof over my head. I have a car, and I have a place for my cat. I have a job, and I start getting more friends in the Albuquerque area that are not doing drugs, and it's great. I'm really happy, but I say, whatever, let's start using again. Let's look for another bag. And so I do, and I end up using again. I start relapsing again, and although relapsing is part of recovery, I fucking hate that I had to relapse. But again, the addiction at this point has me so deep that it's all I know to do in my free time is get high. But I use every day, and I still maintain my job. And I'm living a double life again, where people have no idea that I'm a drug user because I show up to work on time. I do great work. I input great ideas, and I'm never late, and all this good stuff that where in my room or my own little world after I'm off work, I just get high. And I do nothing else besides get high, and that's just an addiction at its finest, where it's just ruining everything around my life slowly but surely. And even though I try to get back up on my feet, it comes back and it bites me in my ass harder and harder. So I maintain a job. I'm continuing to use. And there was a girl that I met in South Dakota when I had moved up there, that we kept in contact, and she decided to move down with me in January of 2020. And I drove up there, picked her up, we drove back, and I introduced her to meth as soon as we got back. I had a bag waiting in my dresser, and although she was reluctant to do it, we wanted to be together, live together, so we now had 2 addicts living under one roof. So it's hard enough to maintain myself and my addiction, but now we have to maintain 2 addictions and 2 different kind of people who look at life a lot differently when they're sober and when they're high. So this is going to be the beginning of a downfall, and also a blessing in itself, because 2 people who eventually end up wanting to get clean are able to help each other and support each other at the end of the long run that we have ahead of us. So 2 addicts living under one roof. I'm maintaining my job. She does all the household chores. Life is going hunky-dory. We justify it, and I continue to justify it every single time that I've been getting high to this point. I even do so well at my job that I get promoted to assistant manager within 6 months, and in May of 2020 we moved to Dallas, Texas, and we decide, hey, this is another great opportunity for a fresh start, another great time for us to get back on our feet and realize we are not drug addicts and that we can do something great with ourselves. We're in a brand new city. We don't know anybody at all. Our people, places, and playground have changed, and now we have a fresh start to really make something great of this, because I'm on a great career path again. She can start getting a job as well, and we just know that we can make this happen if we do the right things. Unfortunately, we know nothing else besides getting high, so within a month we find a dealer and we start getting high again. This time is a little different though. We're in a brand new city, a very large city, and lots of different cultures come with the new city, different type of people, different way of living, and all these things that come about a new place can be a little overwhelming. So we kind of just stayed inside and got high all the time and really just didn't do anything else besides that. And again, I was still maintaining my job. I was still living a double life. Nobody in their right mind knew I was a user. And at this point, we started looking a little sick. I mean, I was so skinny, so thin. I'm normally 200 pounds. I had dropped at this point to 145 pounds. I believe the lowest point my girlfriend got to like 95 pounds. We were just so sick looking. But looking at ourselves in the mirror, we didn't see that. And looking at ourselves doing drugs again, we were okay with it because we've always been okay with it, and we were maintaining a job. And in fact, being an assistant manager, we got rent-free board at the hotel that I was living at. So I got to live at the hotel with no rent, with no bills besides a phone bill. So every single dollar that I made went to drugs. And we started using so much that the dreaded voices in our head came and pretty much pitted the both of us against each other, where we were not having fun anymore. We were just getting angrier and angrier at each other and getting upset at each other for the stupidest things. And we didn't once blame the drug. We blamed each other. It was ridiculous what this drug has done to us. It was ridiculous what this drug has done to me since I started using. And that's where I wanted to kind of go, is like, my upbringing did not make me into a drug user. My childhood was great. My education was great. And I've had 3 or 4 opportunities for a really great career path that were great. Really came down to decisions I made and not understanding how to cope with the feelings and emotions I was having throughout my life, especially my young adolescence into my teenage years. Not knowing how to cope with my emotions and my feelings and how to handle them correctly. I would rather just mask them with drugs. And the feeling of being invincible for all my life and not thinking that I can get hooked on anything, well, meth fucking took me, chewed me up, spit me out, and I kept fucking going back to that same cycle. And it really, really took everything I ever had, I've ever wanted, away from me. And I allowed it to, because I didn't think it was happening to me at the rate I thought it was. So that's where we're at this point, right? 2 addicts hating each other, and now this is where we start seeing, like, there needs to be a change, that we cannot do drugs anymore. We cannot live like this anymore. And we both had different ideas of how to go about it, but really we both had the same idea that we need to get clean. And the only way to do that is to, support each other and do it together. Eventually, we got kicked out of the hotel we were living at. I lost my job as assistant manager, and in December of 2020, January 2021, we're homeless again in Dallas, Texas, living in my car with all the things we've ever owned. And what I know to do is to run back to Dad, and that's what we did. We came back to Albuquerque in February of 2021, and we put our boots on the ground and we said, this is it. We are going to do this right, and we're going to do it right the first time. Even though we made all the mistakes, we're going to do it right together. And with the help of my dad, roof over our head, we live rent-free. But here's the kicker. Living with your parents after being 30 years old, and they're thinking differently, we're thinking differently. My dad and I butt heads a lot. So I said, you know what, fuck this, we're leaving. And we leave his house in April. and we decided to be homeless on the streets of Albuquerque, living in the car, camping in the mountains, coming to and from the city to get our bags of meth, and we relapse again. This is where the felony part comes in, and this is the stupid mistake that finally has caught up to me after this many years, is we decide that we're gonna deal some drugs. And dealing drugs, you know, I've done it before, I feel comfortable, I know the places to find it and the people to sell to and where to find them, so why not? Well, I end up selling to undercover cops, and I do it twice, and they didn't arrest me at that point. They were doing this massive sting operation online where, I would pose as a dealer online. I would say I have this, and they would reach out to me as a client or a customer, and I ended up selling to them twice. And then I get a letter in the mail at my dad's house about a lawyer in May of 2020 or 2021, and it says you may have a felony case against you. And this is when I realized I fucked up. So at this point, I moved back with my dad. We looked at the felony case, and basically they're charging me with 4 felony counts. 2 of them are trafficking methamphetamine, and 2 of them are conspiracy to traffic methamphetamine, since I was making a deal online, conspiring over the phone, and then of course doing the actual transaction with them in their car. And at this point I'm busted, right? So here's what the video is really about. I became a felon in April 20th 2021, and when I found out in May, I said enough's enough. I'm fucking not doing drugs no more. I took it very seriously because the lawyers I was talking to said I was facing up to 36 years, and that's pretty much the rest of my life at this point, because I'm 34 now. And things got really, really fucking scary for me at this point. Like, I was basically scared away from meth at this point, and I didn't want anything to do with it no more. And I was so pissed off at myself for letting myself do stupid things because of my addiction, all because I needed to get money in my car for gas, or money for food. I decided to steal drugs instead of doing it the right way. So being a felon fucking sucks. It has limited me in so many ways, to where I'm unable to work because most places will not hire me. I was very, very, very fortunate to have a apartment complex rent to me with my background, although my parents had a co-sign for me. And I am now been drug-free and alcohol-free since May of 2021. So it's been over a year that I've been clean, and it's all because of that stupid moment and lapse in judgment that I had selling to a cop. And it was almost a blessing in disguise, right? Because who knows what would happen if I would have kept doing it, right? Who knows where I've been? I can't even fathom where I would be at that point if that felony conviction never came through. Now, the reason why I'm telling you all this, and the reason why I'm not afraid to tell you what I'm being charged with, is because I joined a program called the PPD program, which is a program in New Mexico. I think maybe it's only exclusive here, but it's a pre-prosecution diversion program. And basically, it's a program for any first-time felon to go through a year of probation with drug tests, monthly check-ins, and no contact with police. And going through this program, you're basically offered a second chance at life, because once I complete the program, I then have a chance to get the felony expunged off my record. Now, here's the other good part, is that once I complete the PPD program, it shows dismissed on my record. It doesn't say conviction, it doesn't say pending, it says dismissed. So there's the silver lining in it all. Doing drugs is stupid. Doing it for how long I did and thinking I'm invincible is stupid. But at the end of the day, becoming a felon, although it may suck and though it may be bleak, it was a blessing in disguise for me because it's really what got me clean. And the PPD program, if anybody's ever facing a first-time felony conviction in the state of New Mexico, it's a great program because it will give you a second chance at life. And at this point, I'm happier than I've ever been. I have a roof over my head again. I have not done drugs in a year, and I'm still with the same girlfriend, and we've supported each other this whole time. And whenever we do feel weak, we're able to talk to each other about it. So that's kind of my story. I'm going to wrap that up here. I really appreciate you guys hanging out and listening to my story. Like I said, like, comment, subscribe, and you guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you guys sometime later.